Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another, it's probably Mad Meta. This could be tryharding, not sure. But we're going to be playing Mono Black Control again. This is right after the previous Mono Black Control list. We made a few adjustments. We went down a few Profane Tutors. I did not replace them with Tutors. Actually, I should. Hang on. Sorry, people who I just updated the Stream Decker extension for. I'm going to be playing a Grim Tutor. And I'm going to be playing a Grim Tutor over... probably a Fatal Push. Okay. We took up Profane Tutor because Profane Tutor, while it is really powerful, gets countered very hard by a lot of cards we were running into. Invoke Despair was amazing in the first league, and we made some adjustments to the sideboard. I dropped Collective Brutalities. I've added Debt to the Kami to actually help us deal with enchantments. It also is exile removal for creatures. We're running Nile Spellbomb to actually nuke Graves versus decks like Living End and Dredge. And we have Surgical Extraction in addition to Extirpate. Extirpate was also quite reasonable. And I think does deserve a slot versus Control, as the last match of the previous video will tell you. And with all of that being said, let's go ahead and run this through another league. Super excited about this. Deck's been running real hot. I made some slight mistakes in the last league. Probably could have 4-1'd if I had done a little bit better. One of the particular matches was also very close, so... looking forward to it. I hope everybody who's tuned in is enjoying it. I know I am. All right, round one. Here we go. I think this is an excellent starting hand, so we will keep. What we lead on depends on what our opponent plays. Opponent did mulligan to 5. They lead on Bloodstained Mire. Or they mulligan to 6, excuse me. I think because I already have all the lands I want, I'm going to lead on Inquisition and see what's going on. Scion of Draco. So this is Calibrated Blast. The deck. We do need to be aware, and we are also going to be bringing in Necromentia post-board. Opponent does shock Steam Vents. This lets them play Scion of Draco, which we have no hope of fatal pushing. Erebos' Intervention will help us gain life, but is currently not very useful. So go ahead and play Expedition Map. We'll go ahead and play Urborg. Opponent has the swamps anyway. They play a Mishra's Factory. They hit us for 4. We untap. We draw another Coffers. Play Coffers. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent untaps. Plays another Mishra's Factory, which must be one of the cards that they drew. If this is Calibrated Blast, we will be very sad. Okay, opponent goes to combat. They attack. We are going to go ahead and kill this Mishra's Factory with Erebos' Intervention. Gain a little bit of life. Take 4. Untap. We draw Profane Tutor. So play another Coffers. Activate Coffers. Activate Coffers. Suspend Profane Tutor and cast Damnation. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play Ramanop Ruins. They animate their other Mishra's Factory. They're going to hit us for 2. We go down to 12. Profane Tutor ticks down to 1. We draw a third Cabal Coffers. Well, I mean, as long as we have all the mana in the world, we might as well use it, right? Let's go ahead and activate Expedition Map. Probably just going to go get the 4th Cabal Coffers. I don't see why not. And play Archon. Make our opponent discard, drain them, we gain some life. As long as we can stay above a reasonable amount of life, we can... I think it's... as long as we can get above 16 life, we're not going to die to Calibrated Blast. Otherwise, there's some variance involved. We won't die to the first one, anyway. Alright, opponent plays Bloodstained Mire. That's the last card we know. Profane Tutor coming off Suspend. Mezerin, thank you for following. I really appreciate it. Lots of followers today. Thank you all. What is going to work best for us? So we're attacking. We're going to hit them for 9. We're going to play an Archon. I think Invoke Despair will be lethal alongside an Archon. So go to combat. Attack for 6. Force them to sacrifice and discard. Opponent discards a Scion of Draco. Take 6, goes to 5. Play Cabal Coffers. Activate. 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 Play Archon. Force them to discard again. And invoke Despair. Sick. Alright, that's round 1. That is going to be the most difficult round. Versus this opponent, we will be bringing in Break the Ice. We will be bringing in Necromentia. We will be bringing in Debt to the Kami. And probably Surgical and Extirpate. Fatal Push, I think, is coming out entirely. Victim of Night can stay, as that can answer Scion of Draco. We do want the Hand Hate. It did go better than expected, I agree. You should be able to... I don't know why the bot's not working. It should be integrated with Stream Decker. This is the link to the Stream Decker list. There is a Grim Tutor instead of a Fatal Push for that list, though. I did make a last-minute edit. Welcome back, Mr. Poopy Butthole. How's it going? So versus this opponent, Erebos' Intervention is not as good because they don't really use the Grave. We may not want Victim of Night. We're basically just trying to get Calibrated Blast into the Grave and then Surgical, Extirpate, or, Necromentia to get rid of it. Liliana of the Dark Realms, probably not necessary. Ugins are probably not necessary. Although I kind of hesitate to rely solely on Archon of Cruelty. Let's not run Damnation. I'm probably way over sideboarding for this. Profane Tutor's going to be, I think, too slow. As is Grim Tutor, so let's drop the tutors. Inquisition is going to be quite vital. You know what? Let's drop the Victim of Nights. Let's do this. Hope they don't have Leyline. Can't imagine they would run Leyline, as that would interrupt the Calibrated Blast, but this is a pretty good hand. We can lead on Thoughtseize. We have Break the Ice to slow them down. I mean, we don't have Surgical, but hopefully we'll draw it. Thoughtseize our opponent. Opponent does have a Throes of Chaos, which acts as a redundant Calibrated Blast. If I take Throes of Chaos, they can retrace it, but that does demand more of their mana base. They have Bosiju, who endures. They are a little ways away from Scion, although probably not that far, because they'll probably fetch a Tri-land. Alright, take Throes of Chaos. Pass the turn. Opponent going to crack Wooded Foothills. They get a Ralgren Triome. Untap. They play a Bloodstained Mire, which is what they drew because we did not see it in their hand. They get an Overgrown Tomb. And they play Scion of Draco. We untap. We draw Sign in Blood. We are absolutely going to Sign in Blood. Okay. Pass the turn. Opponent going to play Stomping Ground tapped. We untap. We draw a Swamp. So play a Swamp. Play an Expedition map. Let's see. Calibrated Blast is an instant. I think we just pass. There's a good chance we're going to die to it. I could have pitched both black cards and used all of my mana to kill the Scion of Draco on my opponent's turn. But I really want to crack Expedition map here and get an Urborg. Calibrated Blast is also an instant. So let's go get an Urborg. They're holding Bosiju, who endures, in their hand. We get an Extirpate. Play Urborg. Let's go ahead and Extirpate Throes of Chaos. I don't want them playing a land and then discarding Bosiju. Actually, should have done this on their draw step. They have Consigned to Oblivion and a whole bunch of stuff that will be painful for us. Okay, I think we are going to give up on this Break the Ice. We're going to kill Scion of Draco. Opponent's going to Consign to bounce it to their hand. Okay. They do not have 5 mana, so they cannot Aftermath Oblivion. Opponent replays Scion of Draco, plays a Ramunap Ruins. We untap. We draw another Archon. Okay, we're at 7 mana. So next turn's going to be the big Archon turn. Hopefully they can't kill us. There's a somewhat decent chance they can. Okay, let's, go get another swamp. That does take us off of Archon of Cruelty this turn. It's a good play by the opponent. They're going to besiege you, Coffers, sure. Get another swamp there. Now we need an answer to Scion of Draco or we die. We don't draw one, so on to game 3. Opponent got us with the beats. Domain aggro beats. Yeah, run it back. No adjustments. Would like to play first. We do have a surgical. We do have an expedition map. Do we really need Break the Ice? Probably not. So we're going to mulligan that. This is much better. I will keep this. We will put back a swamp. Inquisition. Opponent has Calibrated Blast. Okay. Pass the turn. So the big trick here is drawing Extirpate. Or Surgical. Okay, we draw Break the Ice, which does not do anything to Endotha Triome. There's a pretty good chance if we cast Inquisition, we hit nothing. It's not a snow land. It cannot produce colorless. So, play Swamp. Pass the turn. More like Brick the Ice? Yeah, possibly. Possibly. Opponent gonna Bloodstain Mire to put out Scion of Draco. Okay. We untap. We draw Invoke Despair. Invoke Despair, quite good. So let's Inquisition again. Okay, lots of big stuff. Okay, I have to wait. I, for some reason, thought I had enough to kill that with March of Wretched Sorrow. I won't until next turn. Opponent does play a Mishra's Factory, so we can Break the Ice to kill that. Good old Sinkhole. I mean, we should probably kill Scion of Draco first, but... we don't need this Thoughtseize. Let's go ahead and... X is currently 3, X is 4. Okay. Okay, we go back up to 20, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a Bloodstain Mire. They pass. We untap. We draw an Extirpate. Let's go ahead and Break the Ice. Okay. And then the instant my opponent hits their draw step, we're going to Extirpate. Technically, that does give them the opportunity if they held priority at the draw step, but they didn't. And of course, they cannot respond because this is Extirpate. If I had Surgical, I would have done this on my own turn. Okay. So opponent's deck is pretty officially hampered. Nothing in their hand was too concerning. They play a Wooded Foothills. We untap. We really just need lands at this point. There's nothing they can there's nothing worth Inquisitioning in their hand that we saw. So we're just gonna pass. Some notion that maybe I should throw it out because, you know, I wanna be able to activate Castle Lochthwain, take as minimum amount of damage as possible, but opponent going to Besiege, who endures. We'll get a swamp. That's fine. We draw March. Pass the turn. I mean, opponent's plan now is just going to be play enough lands that they can cast, hard cast, like, gigantic creatures. And it's not a terrible plan to have, but I do believe ours is better. We do need just one more land, and any land in our deck will do it. Okay, opponent plays a Scion of Draco. I do want to draw 3 cards off Invoke Despair, so I'm just going to exile here. Go ahead and maximize March value, untap. We draw Thoughtseize. Probably not anything worth Thoughtseizing, so we're going to wait. Okay, opponent passes, we untap. Draw Archon of Cruelty. Just need that one land. Just the one land, that's all we need right now. Opponent untaps. They play a mountain. And they pass. We untap. We draw an Urborg. Excellent. Play Urborg. Hit our opponent for a lot. Draw a bunch of cards. So good. More lands and another Invoke Despair. Okay. Opponent untaps. They play a Nephalia Academy. That's your buddy Micro? Oh no. I'm sorry, Dredge the Bed. Playing Besiege Tribal. Oh man. Let's go ahead and Invoke Despair. We get a Surgical Extraction and a Sign in Blood. Alright. Pass the turn to our opponent's draw step. We're going to Surgical Scion of Draco. Opponent has Emrakul, Besieju, Blinkmoth, Autochthon Worm, Autochthon. Okay, so they're a ways off of casting any threats. Okay. Oh, you don't need to harass him. I'm sorry. I don't want to, like... I love Calibrated Blast. I'm just really trying to 5-0 with this deck. This is the 8-mana Lightning Bolt. And we win the match. Alright. I think we are pretty unfairly positioned when it comes to combo decks like that, because we do play so much Hand Hate, we do play so many Surgicals. So, on to round 2. Welcome, new people. We're currently playing Cabal Coffers Control. If you're using the Stream Decker extension, you can see the exact list that I'm playing. -1 Fatal Push, +1 Grim Tutor. We had a successful first league this stream, and we are on our way to the second league right now. We're, currently 1-0. And Invoke Despair is, it's so good. It is absolutely, utterly backbreaking. And this is the deck to be playing it in. So, simple plug for myself. If you haven't yet and you like this kind of content, please consider joining the Discord. !Discord can get you a link. I do make YouTube content. A lot of it's re-edited VODs. So if you watch on YouTube, it's like this, but with all the dead air cut out of it. This hand is pretty good opener versus a lot of things. So we are going to keep. You guys have a Belcher combo podcast? That's awesome. Dredge the Bed, thank you for following. Opponent leads on Ghost Quarter into Aether Vial. We untap, we draw, Invoke Despair, play a Swamp, and pass the turn. The nice thing is we are so resilient to any sort of land hate because we play like 12 or 13 basics. So I'm not worried about Ghost Quarter in the slightest. This does look like some sort of Death and Taxes list. It's maybe like a Thalia, Stoneforge Mystic, okay? I'm going to let them tutor with Stoneforge first, because if they get something like Cauldra, it makes it even more enticing to Fatal Push Stoneforge Mystic. Sword of Fire and Ice. Alright, that's a better grab for them than like a big threat is. I bet you Invoke Despair in Standard is really good too. Let's go ahead and play an Urborg, and Sign in Blood, I want to draw some cards. Okay, we got all of our 8-mana plays. Just got to draw some early game now. Stop making the white opponent feel bad for the only color that can't draw cards. He's got Silent Clearing. That's a card that says draw cards right on board. Alright, they vial in a Giver of Runes. Giver of Runes is somewhat decent against our deck. Aether Vial ticking up to 2. So be interested to see what route they take here. Silent Clearing is colorless. I mean, it's just kind of Orzhov. It says Swamp on it. Technically, I guess it's a black card. Right? Alright, another Stoneforge Mystic. So this time we might be in some trouble with Cauldra. We do have an Ugin if we can get to an Ugin fast enough, which at this point is kind of looking a little unlikely. We'll play a Swamp. Yes, indeed they are. They are also colorless. If I cast March on Stoneforge Mystic, they're just going to protect it with Giver of Runes. So I can kill Giver of Runes with March, and without giving up any cards in hand. Coffer is going to get me up to 5 mana. Should I pitch a card to gain a little extra life when I do this? Archon might be a little bit ambitious. Yeah, I'm thinking we need to kill the Giver. And I'm going to exile 1 Archon to do it. I think the extra life is going to matter a bit here. I don't want them to vial in like a Thalia or something like that on their end step, which would prevent me from doing this. I mean, if they vial in Thalia, we're also in trouble because we won't be able to invoke Despair next turn, but us gaining 4 life is a pretty big deal here. I'm going to give Stoneforge Mystic protection from black. Okay. If we can play this Coffers and like draw another Coffers, then we might be able to get to like an Ugin and deal with the whole board. That is a Leonin Arbiter. That along with Ghost Quarter is very terrible for us. I suspect they're going to put Cauldra into play rather than go for the Ghost Quarter play, though. If they had a third land, this would be so much worse for us. Okay, in comes Caldra. I don't know what's wrong with the bot, but here's the link to the list. So we're going to go ahead and take 5. Not really a choice here. No worries. Thanks for tuning in, Taco Bolus. Glad to have you. We draw a Fatal Push. I think it might be time to Fatal Push Arbiter. No, we need to cast Invoke Despair. We need to cast Invoke Despair. We need to draw cards here to get out of this. Even if we lose a land this whole way, it's still the best thing we can do. Opponent may even sack Arbiter, who knows. They're a ways off of the Sword of Fire and Ice. I don't think that's going to come down anytime soon. They're probably going to be really tempted to use Ghost Quarter next turn, so they may sack Stoneforge, and then just try and Ghost Quarter Cabal Coffers. If they have a second Ghost Quarter, we're basically done. There's not going to be anything we can do. Opponent is debating about what things to sacrifice. Well, the fact that they haven't done it immediately means it is a tough choice, and that's good for us. We do draw another March. We draw Profane Tutor. Okay, they did get rid of Arbiter, thankfully. That could mean they have a second Arbiter, or they have like the 3-mana 2/3 core guy. Flicker Wisp. Okay. Opponent is going to Flicker Wisp Stoneforge Mystic. Stoneforge Mystic, gonna go tutor up. Could be a Batterskull. It is a Batterskull. They untap Aether Vial. Stand on 3. They have a field. I'm going to turn off auto yields in case they Ghost Quarter me on their turn. That would give me access to both March or Fatal Push. Okay, opponent going to attack us for 5, 8, 9 total. Sure. Fubu3, thank you for following. I really appreciate it. We get hit for 9, go to 8. Opponent is going to activate Field on Coffers. I think that was the wrong land to hit. They're going to play a Giver. So we are going to Fatal Push Flicker Wisp. Profane Tutor is going to be too slow. Fatal Push will be active next turn. Yeah, we're going to Fatal Push Flicker Wisp. The reason I used Fatal Push and not March is because March potentially lets me have extra mana on my turn, provided I draw something like Coffers. Okay, Swamp's not bad. Play a Swamp. Do we suspend Profane Tutor? We can March for 4, +2/+2. Profane Tutor, I don't think we're going to be alive long enough. Because if I suspend Profane Tutor, we're taking 5, then we're taking 5 again, minimum, provided they have nothing else off that Aether Vial. We're getting Ghost Quartered at least once more. March can gain us like 6 if we don't use Profane Tutor. We'd be taking 6 and 6, so it'd take us to 2. They have Vial anything, or if they can get that sword in, we're dead. So Profane Tutor is dead. That Dream is dead. We have other removal spells in the deck, so there's a chance that killing Giver here is the play. If we don't kill Stoneforge, they could potentially draw land, Stoneforge in Sword and equip Sword, or play Batterskull and speed up the clock. Removal spells don't do anything to Caldra. We could kill the Giver, yes. I think we kill the Stoneforge Mystic. And we're going to go for maximum life gain here. And the reason that I say this is it stops the potential for Batterskull immediately or Sword. If they have another Flicker Wisp flickering the Stoneforge Mystic, we're probably just screwed. But how does March kill again? It kills with damage. We do have Erebos' Intervention, which is -X/-X, but we're cut down to a singleton in this current list. Now, Erebos' Intervention can kill Caldra. Opponent does have a Skyclave Apparition with no targets. All hail Phyrexia, how's it going? Good to have you, thanks for tuning in. What are we on today? Right now we're on Coffers Control. And we've been doing really well with it today. We've got some new cards from Neon Kamigawa, and they are baller. Opponent has a second Ghost Quarter. I'm really glad I hit that Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, they play a Sword. They're going to hit us for 7. We're going to go to 9. Okay, we basically have to draw Cabal Coffers. Thoughtseize is not Cabal Coffers. So we're dead, unfortunately. We are dead. Because I just equip Sword. It's more damage than we can deal with. All right. Moving on to game 2. I think we're going to bring in Debt to the Kami just as additional creature removal. Surgical Extraction, Extirpate. Now, Surgical matters for something like Ghost Quarter. I don't know that we're bringing in Break the Ice. Like, yes, it's true we could hit a Ghost Quarter. We are on the play, so we have more opportunity to do it. We might. I think Surgical might be reasonable to take them off, but I mean, I guess. So they play Field. They play Ghost Quarter. Let me look up a list really quick. Let me see. Leonin, Arbiter. What decks run Leonin Arbiter in Modern? Death and Taxes. Let's see how many colorless lands they play. There's not been a white-black list lately, but the mono-white lists play a lot of Eldrazi, so that means they play Eldrazi Temple. They can play like Sheffet Dunes and Wastes. I think Surgical and Extirpate are fine. Probably Surgical a little bit more so. Fatal Push is important. Victim of Night is important. Thoughtseize is important, especially with Surgical. March, Erebos' Intervention also good. Archon of Cruelty is also important, but is going to be very difficult to get to, especially with all the mana disruption. I think I'm going to cut 2 Archons. I'm going to go to 2 Archons, 2 Ugins. Maybe Surgical is just... I'm going to cut Surgical. I think Surgical is maybe a little too ambitious. I think Debt to the Kami actually matters, though, as potentially exiling our opponent's only threat. Okay, I do want to play first. This hand works. We have an Inquisition, we have multiple removal spells, we have Liliana of the Dark Realms to help ensure land drops, provided we make it to 4 mana. So we are going to lead on Inquisition. Opponent has Aether Vial, Giver of Runes, Rest in Peace, Sanctifier, and Vec. Now, I'm not worried about Rest in Peace. We're not doing anything out of the grave at all. So Sanctifier and Vec is probably the only thing that needs to go here. Everything else we can deal with. And also depends a lot on what our opponent's top decking. So, opponent leads on Ghost Quarter into an Aether Vial. We untap. We draw a Debt to the Kami. Play Urborg. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Aether Vial. Takes up to 1. Opponent plays a Plains. Probably casts Rest in Peace. I'm glad I did not bring in Surgical. It would be dead with a Rest in Peace on board. I mean, if we want to get rid of Rest in Peace, we do have Debt to the Kami, but really need to draw some lands. That's what we need here. Sign in Blood also acceptable. Okay, there's a land. Play a land. Okay, opponent going to vial in a 1-drop. 1-drop going to get Fatal Pushed. Okay, opponent untaps. Aether Vial. Going up to 2. Opponent gonna play Stoneforge Mystic. Gonna tutor up. Probably Kaldra. It is Kaldra. Okay. Pass to their end step. We will Fatal Push. The only thing they could have is like Selfless Spirit, so... We untap. We draw a Swamp. Perfect. Play Liliana of the Dark Realms. For those of you that don't know, Liliana of the Dark Realms was printed in M13 only once. They decided that was not the power suite they wanted for Liliana. But her uptick lets you tutor up a swamp. Her downtick lets you either buff a creature you control or -X a creature an opponent controls equal to the number of swamps you control. It's quite a powerful effect, honestly. Another Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, so opponent's going to put in a Kaldra. That Kaldra likely is going to kill Liliana. That's really unfortunate. Thankfully, she did net us a land. I did not anticipate my opponent to have a second Stoneforge Mystic. If I did, I would have taken a completely different game plan. So, in comes Kaldra. Hopefully, we can march and Debt to the Kami. Okay, Invoke Despair, also good. I could march pitching Invoke Despair, and then Debt to the Kami if my opponent taps Aether Vial. If they don't, that would leave me with nothing. I actually think I cast Invoke Despair here. It does get rid of Rest in Peace, at least. I want to draw extra cards. I want to be ensuring I hit my land drops. It's very important in this deck. Okay, so they sacrifice Stoneforge Mystic. They sacrifice Rest in Peace. Then they lose 2 life, and we draw a card. We draw Cabal Coffers. Now that is going to be huge. Absolutely enormous. Okay. Opponent untaps. Aether Vial. Takes up to 3. They play Chef at Dunes. Maybe I should have Break the Ice in the deck. 3 mana, opponent hard casts a Sword of Fire and Ice. They're going to attack us for 5. Okay. We untap. We draw another Urborg. So the only thing that would get us is if they have the 3 mana 2/3 core that flies, that I cannot remember the name of. So let's play Cabal Coffers. Activate Coffers and say target opponent exiles a creature they control. They would get us with Flicker Wisp? No, they wouldn't. Would they? Hang on. Because we say that they exile a creature they control. It's not targeted. They flash in Flicker Wisp, we march Flicker Wisp, and then what? They flicker Kaldra, they get back Kaldra with a token, and then they exile a creature they control, which would be Kaldra. We're good, right? I think we're good. I think we're good. Gets it back at end of turn. Oh, no, you're right. For some reason, I was thinking it was immediate return. You are correct. They exile the token and then just reset the living weapon. That's fair. Let's see what they vial in here. Flicker Wisp. What are they targeting? They are going to target my Cabal Coffers. Okay, now it's fine. So let's march, hitting Flicker Wisp. Not exiling Debt to the Kami. Kill Flicker Wisp. Gain 5 life. Then we will have them exile a creature they control. Now they can still Flicker Wisp their guy, right? I mean, I think they're holding Solitude and Aether Vial now. I think those are the last 2 cards they have in hand. And this means they cannot Ghost Quarter our our Cabal Coffers until our turn. They take up Aether Vial to 4, which means they're probably hoping to Aether Vial Solitude. They play their other Aether Vial. Solitude is last card in hand. We get back Coffers. We draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Unfortunately, we have nothing else to do. Okay, opponent untaps. Aether Vial takes up to 1. Aether Vial takes up to 5. And they draw a card. We should win in a top deck war. We have so much that's just incredibly brutal for our opponent. Okay, they exile our grave. We don't really care about that. This is difficult for us to answer, but it's not the end of the world. Invoke Despair does it. Damnation does it. There's an Invoke Despair. So, Invoke Despair. I don't think my opponent would vial in Solitude to sack Solitude. That is possible. Okay. Why haven't they ghosted our lands? They've been trying to play out spells. And just giving us swamps at this stage is fine. Like, we have enough mana, we can actually, like, be hard casting stuff. They're probably waiting on an Arbiter. So opponent sacks Solitude, we get another Coffers and a Grim Tutor. Life is good. So let's Grim Tutor. And I guess we just get Archon, right? Because Archon immediately gets rid of their threat and draws us a card. Play Archon. And we draw Swamp, of course. You know? I did ask for lands, I'm getting lands. And now Ghost Quarter is pretty medium, because like even if they drew what is it, the 2 mana, a top deck Path. What a top deck. Still not super relevant. We draw a Victim of Night, play another Swamp, pass the turn. All the mana everywhere, but not a point to spend. Okay, Vial on 2, Vial on 5. It's a top deck fight, and our top decks are going to be way more impactful than theirs 90% of the time. At least when they're not removal spells. But, you know, we can just charge up removal spells and be fine about it. This way, if they top deck Flicker Wisp and immediately reset Kaldra, we can deal with it. Vial, stand on 2, stand on 5. Okay, opponent's going to Vial in a 2-drop. It's Thalia. Kill it. Okay, Sword, fizzles. Opponent passes, we untap. We draw Erebos' Intervention. That will gain us roughly 1 quadrillion life, I imagine. I don't think they buy anything back from the grave. Vial, stand on 2, stand on 5. This can also kill a Kaldra. Archon of Emeria. That's the one I was thinking of when I said I couldn't remember what it was called. Okay. I can't cast more than 1 spell a turn, huh? Well, what if that spell is really big? What if that spell is just enormous? Is that fine? X is 23. Oh, just casually double your life total off a removal spell. That's why I love this deck. We untap. We draw an expedition map. Well, you know what? We could get another Coffers. Oh, if only I'd waited a turn. Actually, I should get Castle Locthwain here. Castle Locthwain can actually draw me cards. So we should do that. Gotta pay a little bit of life for it, but somehow I think we're not going to be hurting for mana. And then we will go ahead and suspend Profane Tutor. Pass the turn. Opponent gets 1 turn to cast spells uninterrupted. They probably do Ghost Quarter Castle Locthwain. Us actively drawing cards off our mana base is a pretty big threat. What do they got? It's a 2-drop. I'm turning off auto yields. They lied. Okay. I don't know if they were trying to get me to react or what. They play Sanctifier. That's fine. Sanctifier we can answer with Debt to the Kami. Not that, like, we necessarily need to. We just can. Don't know why they didn't Ghost Quarter Castle Locthwain. We draw Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize not super useful. Let's go ahead and Debt to the Kami. Yes, welcome all new viewers. If you enjoy this content, you want to see more content like it, please feel free to hit the follow button. I know I would really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun here on this channel. We do a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of Tron, mainly. Yeah, let's cast another Archon. We need to start drawing more cards, right? We get a Sign in Blood. Well, if we're going to draw more cards, we better get some more mana out of it first. Sign in Blood. Another Coffers. Yes. Infinite mana. Infinite power. This is glorious. Alright, pass the turn. Alright, Aether Vial. Stand on 2, stand on 5. An opponent scoops, so this will be on to game 3. Do we make any further adjustments knowing what our opponent is playing now? We will be on the draw, which is kind of critical to know. Break the ice. That is one of the major considerations. Casting Thoughtseize is only 1 more life than drawing a card with Castle and leaving it in hand.
Happy birthday!
It's not my birthday, Mr. Poopy Butthole, but thanks. The deck list changed a little bit, yes. We did make some edits. Current list, I'll post in the chat for all of you that want to see. The bot is broken, otherwise normally exclamation point deck would tell you. Do we want these Archon of Cruelties back in the deck? Debt to the Kami was actually like slightly better than I thought it would be. Still not amazing. I don't know what Break the Ice is better than on the draw, though, because I think we need the hand hate. Although, hitting a Ghost Quarter would be pretty fantastic. We know our opponent's going to hate out the Grave with Rest in Peace for some reason, so I don't think we bring in the Surgicals or Extirpates. And they have had Aether Vial, like, in multiples every game. Which, I mean, like, they may not have it in the next game, right? But still. I don't think we make any adjustments. I think we run it as is. Okay. This hand looks good. Cut Sign in Blood for Break the Ice. You almost never cut Sign in Blood from this deck. This deck is trying to 1-for-1, and you need to be able to recoup card advantage, and Sign in Blood's the best way to do it. Opponent did mulligan to 6. They lead on a Plains. We draw a Thoughtseize, so we lead on a Thoughtseize. Opponent has Thalia, Sanctifier, and Leonin Arbiter, along with a Ghost Quarter. Thalia is a little bit of a concern. Sanctifier, not so much. Leonin Arbiter is a big, big problem, so we will take Leonin. Especially in these early turns, our mana is going to be the most easy to disrupt. Opponent playing Thalia this turn off of a Ghost Quarter does mean that we're not playing anything this turn unless we draw another Hand Hate spell. But, you know, suspending a Profane Tutor is not casting a spell, so that's 1 point in Profane Tutor's favor. Especially over the last turn, that's pretty great. Opponent untaps, they play a Silent Clearing. And in comes Sanctifier. Going to exile our Thoughtseize out of the grave. They're going to hit us for 2 with Thalia, that's fine. We untap, Profane Tutor ticking down. We draw Sign in Blood. I'm going to play Cabal Coffers. I am not going to cast Sign in Blood. I'm going to probably Victim of Night this Thalia. Opponent draws a land, they play a land. They go to combat, they hit us for 4. This is fine. I'm not going to Victim of Night until after combat. Mainly because I didn't want them to play another Thalia. That would have been very brutal. Okay. We untap. Profane Tutor coming off suspend. And honestly, it might just be a land we're grabbing here. Let's go ahead and cast Profane Tutor. And get another Coffers. We draw Fatal Push. Play Coffers. Activate. Activate. And, Invoke Despair. It's going to draw us a couple cards. We do have a Fatal Push. I don't think they have anything with Flash. We draw more lands. That's fantastic. And even if they do Ghost Quarter Urborg, which would definitely be the hit here if they were going to Ghost Quarter. They have an Auriok champion. We're not too worried about that. Oh, and it just keeps coming. Yeah. Invoke Despair. This card is insane. Like, how did they think printing this was okay? Let's go ahead and Inquisition. Solitude, Solitude. Okay. That's good to know. I think we Grim Tutor and go get Ugin. I could be safe and get Liliana, but I think Ugin is better. Okay, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play an Aether Vial. Okay, this does mean Ugin is going to resolve uncontested. Definitely should have Ghost Quartered that Urborg, but they did not. So let's play Ugin. I don't understand them not doing it either. I think Sign and Blooding ourselves here is fine, but I'm actually going to wait on that. Because we do have mana floating left over. But I could definitely see that being the logic. But like, with multiple Coffers out and only 2 swamps where we were, like, if they had Ghost Quartered that Urborg, we would have been down to like 4 mana, which is a normal amount of mana. Alright. Pass the turn, we'll leave up Fatal Push. Okay, Aether Vial. They are going to have to trade resources to even things up, yes. Okay, opponent sacks Silent Clearing using Ghost Quarter. Plays another Ghost Quarter. And scoops. We're 2-0! We're 2-0 with this awesome deck in Modern right now. And I'm going to restart the client just to cut down on Moto lag really quick. But another plug for myself, if you're new here and you're enjoying what you're watching, please consider giving a follow. We play decks like this. We play Mono Green Tron pretty frequently. That's what a lot of people want to see. I play a lot of Modern Battle of Wits, so if any of that sounds like fun, consider sticking around. There's also a link to a Discord, which is kind of like this Twitch chat, but all the time. A little more tame, usually. And we do brew a lot of decks on there. I'm considering writing some primers for some of the decks that I am, and if I do, they will be maintained there. So even if you just want to lurk and don't want to participate, please consider doing so. Is Grief good in this deck? I have considered running Grief in this deck. I don't think it is good in this deck. And the reason that I say that is Mono Black Control, at least in the form that I'm playing it, wants to 1-for-1 as much as possible. And when you start trading multiple cards to take a single card of the opponent's, it's not quite as good. Like if we were... Grief is much, much better in a deck where you're trying to like ephemerate it. Because then you're trading 3 cards for like 3.5 or 4 cards, and it's really powerful. In this deck, we'd rather just Thoughtseize almost every single time. It's true that like Grief can provide a body. You can cast it for 4 and like actually start attacking with a 3/2. I don't think that that's worth it in this deck. Z Lego Bob, thank you for following. Much appreciated. Lots of new followers today. If I do 5-0 with this deck, I am going to probably be gifting a bunch of subs, because I would be absolutely thrilled if I could get this deck to trophy. I would love for the list to be posted. To my knowledge, I don't think anybody has posted a Modern Coffers trophy yet, so... Thank you, dear Dad. I appreciate that. Alright, we are against a Lurrus deck. We do have a removal spell. We have multiple Thoughtseizes. I think we're going to keep this. It's a little bit risky, especially if this is Rakdos Lurrus. Okay, opponent leads on Bauble. Bauble's us. Going to look at our top deck. An Inspiring Vantage. They suspend Riftbolt, so this is Lurrus Burn. We will do a lot better post board, I can tell you that. So I'm going to take Eidolon from our opponent. Searing Blaze is likely a dead card, except in the severe late game case. Opponent does have quite a bit of burn. Okay, they drew another Bauble. Play a mountain. We untap. Unfortunately, Sign in Blood really gonna hurt. There's no way we don't Sign in Blood too. Like, we have to. We have to be making our land drops. So it's probably a Boros Charm. Okay, we're going to 9. Opponent's drawing an extra card. They do have a Lightning Helix. They have a Swift Spear. They suspend another Rift Bolt, and we take 1. We draw a Fatal Push. The opponent has us at a virtual 2 with this Rift Bolt and the Lightning Helix in their hand. I don't think I can cast another Sign in Blood like as much as I need to. Unfortunately, we don't have March. Okay, opponent Rift Bolts us. We go to 5. If I cast Thoughtseize or Sign in Blood, I'm actually dead. Okay, Inquisition. That's something. Opponent Lightning Helixes us to 2. Inquisition grabs Searing Blaze. They have a Sacred Foundry. We basically have to hope they top deck, like, creatures and we only have removal spells for them. Opponent plays a Sacred Foundry untapped. Puts Luris into their hand. We untap. We draw another useless Thoughtseize. Oh no. Pass the turn. I swear this never happens to me. This always happens to me. And they have a Skullcrack. Alright. Alright. So, we need to not lose so much life. So, we're probably taking out Grim Tutor. Sign in Blood is brutally painful, as is Thoughtseize. Yes, just in time for the Bolt command. Should have gone out on our own. Yeah. So I think what we'll do is bring in Debt to the Kami. Extirpate, probably better than like a random card that's going to lose us life. Nile Spellbomb. I don't think we want Necromentia. We possibly want Surgical. And I think out of all of these cards, I don't have enough to take out to bring in stuff. I'm not bringing in Kozilek. I don't think Necromentia is right either. I think we leave in a Sign in Blood, and we run it like this. This is going to be a tough matchup with this particular deck build, but hopefully March can be used at a time where we're not going to get skull cracked in response. Now this is a mulligan, unfortunately. Oh my god. This is also a mulligan. This is what I mean about this deck's mana base being bad. So, like, this is why we're running so many swamps. This is why we're not running any tech lands basically at all. Okay, this hand is way better. We'll be keeping this, we'll be putting back an Ugin, and we'll be putting back an Extirpate. Play a swamp, pass the turn. Okay, opponent's turn. They're going to bauble us. They're going to bauble themselves. They play an Arid Mesa. Honestly, I'm going to Surgical that bauble. Bolt, Bolt, Helix, Rift Bolt, Skullcrack. Oh no. Oh no! It's all burned! There's no creatures! I mean, they only have one land, but oh god. Alright. I was thinking with the way they were playing. Insert M Bison. Yes! Play a swamp, pass the turn. Oh, please. Please play a Goblin Guide. Let me draw some lands. Rift Bolt coming off Suspend. This is down to 17. Plays a Sunbaked Canyon. Suspends a Rift Bolt. Suspends a Rift Bolt. No, no, not like this. Not like this. I'm trying to trophy. Fatal Push, in theory, is useful. Oh, man. I'm taking 6. I mean, if they play a creature and they don't have mana to leave up Skullcrack, we're fine, right? Oh, my God. Oh, life is pain. And lightning. No, they have 2 lightning bolts in hand. They're gonna bolt, untap Skullcrack, and we're just gonna die. Oh, please, just play a frickin' Goblin Guide. Sack that Sunbaked Canyon, you don't need it. Lightning Helix, no! No, they have lethal! They didn't play a creature for me to kill! I could gain so much life! No! No! No, why am I a lightning rod? No! Oh my god, this hand would have been great against a creature. Oh. No, the problem is not that we're a 22 land deck. The problem is we had so many self-inflicting pain spells. We sideboarded out all the Sign and Bloods and Thought Seizes. And then our opponent didn't play a creature. That's the only thing that needed to happen. Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully in round 4 we'll do better. Oh my god. We'd have gained like 9 life off that march. Then our opponent would have been out of resources. Yeah, I know. Alright, we are going to keep this. This is a lot of hand hate, a lot of early interaction. This is good versus a lot of decks. We're getting griefed. Well, take your pick. I'll probably do whatever you don't take. Okay. Opponent takes our Planeswalker, plays a Misty Rainforest, and passes. Thoughtseize. This is probably Living End. Hey! It's that thing I said. Take Street Wraith. Pass the turn. So the good news is we are set up, hopefully, to be a better matchup for Living End this time around, this league. In the first league that we played today, we played against Living End, and unfortunately for us, things did not go as planned. We draw kind of a useless Archon here. What was in their hand? Architects and Striped Thoughtseize. See if they drew a Cascade. I'm going to take a Cycler. In theory, that means they have less chances to draw a Cascade spell. No! No, Raylan! Don't tell them! Don't tell them that! I should have done that! This is the second time I'm going to lose to Living End because I didn't listen to you. We can't let you make yourself a meme like this. Oh my god. Alright, Sign in Blood. I want to feel so stupid if I lose because I didn't do that. I even identify... No. Okay. Okay, it's just a counterspell. We're good. Getting high energy today. Opponent plays a Misty, so they can hardcast Architects if they wanted. They don't. We play a Castle. Pass the turn. Oh, they cycled Architects, didn't they? They had a Breeding Pool tapped. They cycle Street Wraith. Don't do it. Don't do it! Oh my god, Raylan, why do you have to be right? I needed to Thoughtseize my own Archon. It's twice now. Twice I have done that. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily win, but it would make it so much easier. We haven't lost any permanents, so we can't Fatal Push the Architects. Yes. That's 5, 8, 11, 14, Death. Okay. Okay. Surgical's in. Nile Spellbomb's in. And Necromentia in. What goes out? Fatal Push hits nothing. Like, it might hit Architects and it might hit the 3-mana 2/2 Cascade, but basically. Victim of Night's reasonable removal. Damnation could be good. Invoke Despair has been literally godlike every time it's happened. Inquisitions of Kozilek. They basically only hit Living End, but they can hit Cascade spells. I don't think we can actually take them out. Maybe I cut the Tutors? Because, like, Invoke Despair has been literally godlike every game. I'm not cutting Invoke Despair. And Victim of Night is the only hard removal spell we can use to hit individual threats. It might buy us a turn. I agree, it's not perfect, it's not great, but... And, like, ideally we would have one of these. I guess I can cut one Victim of Night. I think I'm going to cut the 2 Tutors. Liliana's not that great, although she does ensure land drops. We're going to need our other spells. I can cut an Inquisition. Sign in Blood's going to be critical. We are on the play, so Necromentia is better. I'm going to cut a map. Let's try like this. Okay, I would like to play first. Double Urborg. It would let me cast a Sign in Blood, but we can definitely mulligan and get a better start here. This is another 1-lander with only March, and I don't think that's good enough. We gotta go to 5. This is good enough. This is good enough. So we put back March and we put back Necromentia. Kind of have to hope our opponent doesn't... No, I think we keep both Necromentias. The only way that they're going to get around that is double Grief or Grief Force. I really want to keep Sign in Blood, but I'm going to keep the 3 lands double Necro. Lead on Swamp, pass the turn. Opponent cycle Street Wraith. Griefs. I'm going to take a Necromentia, it's all they can take. Hopefully they can't grief us again, that would be quite awful. They play Spire Bluff and pass. We untap. We draw another Urborg. I'm going to play Castle and avoid fixing their mana for as long as possible. It's unlikely that they're going to actually cast a black spell this turn, but... And they can cycle Architects of Will and stuff like that. It's not a big deal, but... We draw Expedition Map, so... Let's try Necromentia. Name Living End. Now, if this is the, like, oopsie daisies, this is the Rhino version, I'll be really sad. They only have 2 Living Ends, and neither of them are in their hand. They do have Colossal Sky Turtle, which I think is a reasonable include, and they have Grist. So they're on Grist and cast Fatties, basically. Alright, pass the turn. Expedition Map can get us a Cabal Coffers next turn. Castle Lochthwain can, in theory, start drawing us cards. I probably should have taken better stock of what was in their hand, but... Okay, play Expedition Map. Let's go get Coffers. Play Coffers. Might as well Thoughtseize. This does decrease our hand size for Castle Lochthwain, and we'll take Curator from them. That's a spell they could have actually reasonably cast to some effect. When a Cracks Misty gets a Watery Grave, untaps, plays a Forest, Shardless Agent, cascades into nothing, we draw a Sign in Blood, activate Coffers, actually, Sign in Blood, float black, play Urborg, keep the untapped one. And I think we go ahead and Necromentia. We can either Necromentia or we can March. And I think Necromentia and hitting Grist is probably the way to go, because Grist is going to be the toughest thing for us to deal with. Otherwise, the options like Striped Riverwinder, because it has Hexproof, or... Because Grist we can just ping down with March. I keep forgetting this can hit Planeswalkers. I think we're going to Necromentia and hit Striped Riverwinder. Just because it's a big hexproof thing. Okay. Opponent untaps, attacks for 2. I should have gotten the one out of the grave, but I mean, I guess it's not like they're going to recycle it necessarily. Opponent plays an Architects of Will. They're going to manipulate our top decks. I mean, even if they give us a land, it's fine. He could get it back with Turtle. That's true. That is true. Technically, I should have taken the one out of the grave. We have Wraths, though, so it's not the end of the world, and it takes a ton of mana for them to do that. It's still a 7-drop, and an opponent only has 4 mana. I think we're more likely to die to small creatures our opponent plays early, rather than... Okay, let's play a Swamp. Activate Coffers. This costs 3 to activate. I would be losing 1 extra life by doing it now, as opposed to casting March first. Yeah, no, it's a massive, massive card. Do we gain the extra life now? I don't think my opponent is holding Force. I think we draw. Let's draw. Invoke Despair is pretty big. I am going to kill this without exiling Invoke. So I decided to kill the 2/2 over the 3/3. Opponent is holding multiple Violent Outbursts. That's what it was. So like they could cast them in an effort to boost their damage output. So by removing a creature that can attack, somewhat relevant. Like, I could have saved that and cast it for a big amount of damage for a huge life gain, but I think Invoke Despair is going to be better. The only way it's not is if my opponent casts a Grief, which they're not. We draw Ugin. Can I cast Ugin? Nope. 1 off. So Invoke Despair. Let's draw some cards. They're going to sacrifice Architects to keep the slightly bigger creature. Like, the life loss on that is, like, a pretty big deal. Because it's basically a burn spell and a way to finish its game by itself, or this game by itself. Okay, we cannot cast Ugin, so let's go ahead and pass. Next turn we'll have all the mana in the world. It's true, they do have to read it first, and they also have to make the decisions to sacrifice, even if they don't have the permanents, I think. Opponent hits us for 4, we go to 7. We draw Thoughtseize, probably not casting the Thoughtseize. Yeah, play Ugin. -4 Ugin. Pass the turn. You can save this for March fodder. Opponent plays their own Urborg. Another Shardless Agent cascades into nothing. We untap. We draw a swamp. Play a swamp. Shoot Agent. Okay, opponent scoops. Alright. Do we make any adjustments based on what we know now? We need to keep... hopefully we keep a better hand. That was a pretty low mulligan, but Necromentia was pretty godlike. I think we might want Grim Tutor back in the deck. We could do it over like an Inquisition. Would bring in Inquisition over Invoke Despair on the draw. Inquisition only hits Living End, though. That's the problem. Invoke Despair is better in so many other cases. I think I'm just going to ship it back as is. I mean, I could even run Debt to the Kami and exile creatures that way. That's probably not going to matter. Hits their Cascaders, they're all 3 mana. Yeah, but I mean, if they have 1 Cascader, they generally have more. Okay, we have Thoughtseize and Extirpate. We do need a non-Coffers land, though. I think we have to keep this. If they keep a hand, hits Force of Negation as well. That's a good point. Probably should have it in the deck, then. Opponent did mulligan to 6. They lead on Botanical Sanctum. And they grief us, so they're going to take Extirpate. That's pretty bad. They pitched Street Wraith. If I draw an Archon, I am Thoughtseizing my own Archon. That is the play. I cannot do the same mistake 3 times. If you see an Archon, please start screaming at me in the chat. Alright. Thoughtseize opponent. Opponent cycle Striped Riverwinder in response. We will take... Shardless Agent, I guess. Opponent can force the next Thoughtseize, but they have a 1-land hand. They can't even cycle Waker of Waves. Now let's take... Actually, let's take Force, because that lets me Sign in Blood next turn. It only is a real problem if they get to a 2nd land. But we'll know prior. Let's take Force. Opponent has 2 cards in hand. Let's hope they don't top deck a land. They do. Okay. We untap. We draw Damnation. That makes me feel better about a potential Cascade. Play a Swamp. I think we do have to take the Cascade. So we know our opponent has a Waker of Waves. They shock a Steam Vents. They get to Sleight of Hand, put another creature in the grave. But they have to have land Cascade this turn. Okay. We draw Invoke Despair. Sign in Blood. If we hit a non-Coffers land, we can Damnation post Living End. We did not. That's a big deal. Okay, opponent fetches and shot. Oh no, really? Okay. I was like, no way, they drew Violent Outburst? They might still have it, too. We draw Surgical. Let's go Inquiring. Okay, they did draw Violent Outburst. So we're going to Surgical. What is the most power that they have in the biggest number? I think it's Striped River. Because this is going to get them back 2 Striped Riverwinders, a Waker of Waves, a Curator of Mysteries, and a Grief. Oh, if I don't Thoughtseize Grief, they're going to take my Damnation. And then I don't have a way to recover. Or if I don't Surgical Grief. Am I just dead? This is so frustrating. How much damage is that? That'd be 3, 2 is 5, plus 7 is 12. I'm dead. Even if I Surgical Striped Riverwinder, I'm dead. Alright. Unfortunate. We're 2-2. Moving on to round 5. Hopefully, let's see if we can't get a treasure chest. Definitely still a lot of knobs you can tweak on this deck to change varying parameters. Feels kind of bad that we just... I mean, we mulliganed a lot those last 2 games, and we never saw, like, Nile Spellbomb, or... Well, it's just kind of unfortunate. But, at least... Sorry, kind of scatterbrained. Round 5. Here we go. Versus a Lurrus deck, but this seems to be a good opener versus most Lurrus decks, so I think we're going to keep. Opponent leads on an island. Is this Mill? It is Mill. Okay, so we're going to start by pushing the Crab. So Azorius Mill is a recent placing modern deck. We do have a Kozilek out of the side to bring in versus this. Opponent plays an Obero and passes. We untap. We draw a Swamp. The thing is, we don't really search our deck. So Archive Trap is not that great against us. Opponent has Wind's Rebuke, Fractured Sanity, and Drown in the Lock. They can't cast Drown in the Loch. They can force us to search with Field, so that Archive Trap will get activated. Let's take Fractured Sanity, because they could cycle that to mill us and draw a card. Wind's Rebuke we'll have to keep in mind. Let's take Fractured Sanity. And I think we have to Thoughtseize and take Archive Trap, because that should slow them down pretty significantly. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Field. We draw an Urborg. They have a stop on our draw step. Were they going to try and field me on my draw step? Because that's pretty funny. To fix for Drown in the Loch. As long as I play basics, they can't activate Field. They have a Swamp now, so they can counter any spell I cast with CMC 3 or less. They have not put Lurrus into their hand. We draw an Archon of Cruelty. I'm going to play out an Urborg. This does fix their mana. It does let them field me. But I believe next turn, if they don't field, we do have access to Archon. Opponent plays a Crab. Okay. I was going to say they could pick up Obero and replay it, but they drew a Swamp. They're going to mill us for 3. They mill Profane Tutor, March, Archon. Okay, so I'm going to cast... I guess I should have marched in response. I'm going to cast March without casting anything else, or without exiling anything else to it. They might field Urborg in response, or they could Drown in the Loch this. That is also a possibility. If they don't field first, and I think they should field first, we will be able to cast Archon without them milling us. Or without them being able to counter it with Drown in the Loch, I mean. Okay. We get a Swamp. They do not have the ability to Drown in the Loch anymore. So they Winds of Rebuke. Okay. We untap. We draw another Urborg. So they're holding Drown in the Loch, Crab. Play Urborg. Pass the turn. So I imagine they're going to play Crab, then pick up Obero. Okay, they mill us. Okay, we try and Victim of Night the Crab. They'll probably counter this with Drown in the Loch. Okay, they did not. Which means they will have enough mana to counter an Archon. They did not put Lurrus into their hand. We draw another Swamp. How much mana do I have? I do have enough to play Archon. It just gets immediately countered. So we really would like to draw Hand Hate if there's any left in our deck. Opponent has Ancestral. Oh, no, it's just a cantrip. We don't have 20 in our graveyard yet. Victim of Night the Crab. It's dinner time. Fractured Sanity. They're going to mill us for 14. That is a lot. We're running out of ways to win. Archon is a short clock. We just have to be able to resolve it. Okay, Sign in Blood. So Sign in Blood ourselves. Damnation is unfortunately not helpful. Play a Swamp. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent now Ancestral Recalls, and now we're in big trouble. They play a tap land, which means they were not playing a Crab first. Probably putting Lurrus in their hand. They Surgical Ugin. Well, they're going to see we have an Archon in our hand, along with a Damnation and a basic Swamp, but... Okay. They exile 2 Ugins. An Extirpate. I think that's all of our ways to win, too. So, okay. So, Kozilek coming in. Surgical Extirpate coming in. And Nile Spellbomb coming in. Invoke Despair strikes me as the kind of spell we probably will never resolve. Let's think about this. Thoughtseize and Inquisition are going to be absolutely vital. Fatal Push is our best chance of dealing with the Crab. Do they play any enchantments? Do we want Debt to the Kami? Probably not. I'm going to drop the Tutors. I would rather just draw cards. I don't want to search my deck unless my opponent forces me. Like, we could just burn our opponent out with Invoke Despair, so I really don't want to cut that at all. Expedition Map's kind of on the same level. Now Spellbound at least draws a card, so we can kind of replace some cards that way. I guess we can cut Victim because it's less efficient than our other spells. I don't want to cut it completely because if they surgical it, like, I'm still going to need to kill stuff. Cut a March or two, probably because gaining life isn't as important versus this deck. And we'll try it like this. Alright. Would like to play first. Okay. Yeah, I'll keep this. One land and it becomes really good. Opponent did mulligan to 5. Opponent plays Darkslick Shores, Ruin Crab. Okay. I might have to pitch Invoke Despair to kill that. Yeah, I think I do. At least this exiles rather than discards, so opponent cannot surgical Invoke Despair. Okay. Kill the crab. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a field. Passes. We untap. Draw swamp. Sign in Blood. Swamp. Thoughtseize. Opponent cannot counterspell. Counterspell, Fractured Sanity, Surgical. So Surgical we could counter by Nihil Spellbombing ourselves. Fractured Sanity does draw them a card and they could mill. Counterspell is somewhat dangerous. Surgicaling either of the cards in our grave isn't terrible, but surgicaling something like Archon off of Fractured Sanity would be. I think we take Counterspell because they're still a ways away from casting Fractured Sanity. Yeah, let's do that. Pass the turn. Its opponent cycles. We mill 4. I don't remember what Bruvek is. Opponent mills 2 Archons. They play a Ruin Crab. And they pass. We untap. We draw a swamp. Opponent's going to surgical our grave. Well, let's exile it. Draw a card. Surgical fizzles. Creature, whenever opponent mills, they mill twice as much. I mean, Fractured Sanity is the same card as a 3-mana Aura Curse, and that's modern legal. We play Cabal Coffers, that gives us access to 4 mana. Also potentially turns on Field of Ruin. We know they're holding Fractured Sanity, 1 unknown. We're going to Fatal Push. The question is whether we play Swamp or whether we play Coffers. I think we play Swamp. Like, we should probably play Swamps for as long as we can. Opponent cycles Fractured Sanity. Milling Sign in Blood, Thoughtseize, Inquisition, and Surgical. Plays a Darkslick Shores. Kicked Maddening Cacophony. Yeah, I could see that. Play a Swamp. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent cantrips. They untap. They play a Polluted Delta. They crack Polluted Delta, get a Watery Grave untapped. And they are going to cast Fractured Sanity. Okay, they did not mill our other Ugin. So I guess there's that going for us. We draw Kozilek. The one time we don't want to draw Kozilek. In fact, arguably the only time we don't want to draw Kozilek. Play an Ugin. Start shooting our opponent. I mean, if he resolves and they don't mill us out and we attack once, they have no lands. So, like, maybe, but we did have to play a non-basic there. So if they've got, like, Archive Trap, we're dead. They bounce Ugin and mill us a little bit. And then they're going to extirpate Archon of Cruelty and look at our hand. Well, at least that is the last card in their hand. So even if we draw 4 cards, as long as they cannot somehow mill more than 15 cards at a single time, we should win. So play second Coffers. Activate, Kozilek. Okay. Pass the turn. And we got there. Thankfully. I should probably bring in Break the Ice. Honestly, field is like such a big problem. Like, I could cut an Archon for a Break the Ice, but I don't want to go down any more creature removal, because I do need it. We're going to be on the draw. I think I'm just going to run it back. I don't want to do something that marginal, I think. We've got Thoughtseizes, Fatal Pushes, and Surgicals. Lots of them. If our opponent leads on Thoughtseize Surgical, this hand is bad. But like every other circumstance, it's good, so I'm going to keep it. I'm going to turn off auto yields, too. Okay, opponent plays a Ruin Crab. We untap, draw another Thoughtseize, play a Swamp, push the Crab, pass the turn, stop on our opponent's draw step, Surgical Crab. See what's in their hand. Hedron Crab, Hedron Crab, Hedron Crab, Tasha's Hideous Laughter. It's Crabtron. Of all the wrong crabs. Okay, so they're gonna play a crab, Prismatic Vista, play a crab. So we're gonna Thoughtseize then to mitigate the amount of things. Gosh. Yup. So Thoughtseize. Now opponent only has a Field of Ruin. And they can put Luris in their hand, but they can't do anything with it. And they can mill us for 6, which is a problem. 1 unknown card in their hand. Pass the turn, stop on their draw step. Extirpate Prismatic Vista. No! Stop drawing fetch lands! Oh my god, double polluted Zelta! I mean, I can extirpate one. I can extirpate the other one, so like that's cool. But oh, I'm gonna get milled so much. Mill Kozilek. How did you not mill Kozilek? Oh my gosh, this is disgusting. All right, we untap. We draw Coffers, which I'm pretty sure would be lethal if we played it. So pass the turn. Opponent fetches with Polluted Delta. It's a Watery Grave tapped. They mill us for 6 more. Kozilek. Nope. Stop on their draw step. Do I hit Tasha's Hideous Laughter, or do I hit the Polluted Delta? Because as long as they mill Kozilek, it's not that big of a deal. But if they play Tasha's Hideous Laughter, we die. How many Tasha's Hideous Laughters do they play? In Modern, Mill plays 4. They drew the 4th Hedron Crab. And they only have 2. So they're going to assemble Crabtron and mill us a ton. Crazy! 19681, thank you for follow. Inquisition, take out the crab. So now opponent is trying to get us to draw. They're trying to get us to draw Kozilek, basically. That's what's happening here. Okay, they're going to mill us for 6. Kozilek. That probably means they drew like a Surgical. Yep, they did. So they're going to exile Kozilek. Then they're going to shuffle. We get to shuffle our grave back in. And then they're going to mill us as hard as they can mill us. We need to deal with we need to draw an answer to these crabs. And unfortunately, I'm not sure that we are going to. Okay, Invoke Despair is something. It is something we can cast. It's going to draw some cards. Our opponent's going to lose some life. Field of Ruin us immediately. They mill Swamp, Sign in Blood, Damnation, another Invoke Despair, another Sign in Blood, and a Cabal Coffers. I'm going to Fatal Push this other crab, because as long as my opponent... I mean, if they draw another land, they can buy and replay Luris. They did not put Luris into their hand for some reason. Probably because we're playing Thoughtseize and just drew one. Okay, opponent drew another Surgical effect. So they're probably going to hit Archon. Yep, they extirpate Archon. They didn't do it on my draw step, which would have been correct. This leaves us with Ugin or like Invoke Despair burn, and we have 2 Invoke Despairs in the grave right now, along with a couple of Sign in Bloods, 3 Sign in Bloods. So I don't know that we have enough burn to actually win, unless we can somehow resolve an Ugin. There's a really good chance that we're just not going to make it. I actually don't know what their last card in hand is, but they know we are holding a Thoughtseize now. I'm going to continue to play out Swamps. I will only play out a non-basic land if I have to like resolve a big threat, basically. Opponent was going to put Luris in their hand and then remembered we had a Thoughtseize. Well, we can play an Ugin if we can find one. They hard cast an Archive Trap. Still no Ugins in the grave. Oh, did they exile it, actually? They did not. Although there goes another Invoke Despair. I think that's all 4 in the grave now. Yep. Okay. Opponent forgot about Luris. We draw an Extirpate. We could Extirpate Archive Trap or the Crab. They've completely forgotten about Luris. They may not need it. Do we Extirpate Archive Trap or do we Extirpate the Crab? The Crab, all 4 of the Crabs are in the grave. They're just going to replay one with Luris. I think I've got to hit Archive Trap here. Let's see what's in their hand. Winds of Rebuke at a Scalding Tarn. Okay, I believe I made the wrong choice. Like, we're dead to a single Fractured Sanity. Opponent still forgetting about Luris. They do have a Winds of Rebuke. And now they don't. I mean, if they draw Fractured Sanity, we just die on the spot because we have 14 cards left in library now. And no way to stop them from casting one. Opponent plays an Obero. Still forgot about Luris. We draw our 8th Swamp. So we can now cast our Ugin if we ever find one. And they draw the Mill Spell. Yep. I would have been dead like 9 turns sooner if my opponent remembered they had a companion for their deck. But, hey, you know what? Sometimes that's just the way it goes. I do want to continue playing, and I will be continuing playing. I have to take a quick break. I need to refill my water. I need to feed Porter. Got to let him out really quick, make sure he's all taken care of. So I will be right back, but final plug, I'm going to put the deck list up while I'm gone. If you guys are enjoying this content, please consider following the channel. You know, I would really appreciate it if you did. I would eventually like to get to partner if possible, and we're going to be brewing a lot more fun decks. Probably sticking with Coffers here for probably the remainder of the stream at this point, just because I'm having a ton of fun playing it. But if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the, throw them in chat, because I'll be checking my phone while I'm away from my computer. I'll be back in like 4 or 5 minutes, and we'll continue. For those of you on YouTube who are finishing up watching this league, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You're all wonderful human beings. Please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And remember, you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. And I'll see you guys next time.